Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and we have Alexander the Great with us, all the way from Israel. We're going to discuss a multitude of topics during this podcast, but the first thing we're going to talk about is the Bible chapters, essentially, certain quotes out of the Bible that talk about slavery.
The video that you made and garnered a lot of negative comments. That would be the topic.
It certainly did get some negative comments, and there's several passages out of the Bible. The one in particular that I wanted to bring up first is from Leviticus 25:44 through 46, where it says, at least in the King James Bible, "However, you may purchase male or female slaves from among the foreigners who live among you. You may also purchase the children of such resident foreigners, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as your property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. You may treat your slaves like this, but the people of Israel, your relatives, must never be treated this way." Leviticus 25:44 through 46. And the version that you're going to read to us is a lot different because you're going straight to the Hebrew.
You want me to do the Hebrew thing again?
Please, absolutely. And just so you guys know that have a chance to listen to this podcast, Alexander speaks Hebrew fluently.
I'm reading exactly the direct original. Let's go all the way from verse 25 and up till 45. Okay, so let me read it.
Go to at least 46, because in this specific part, it's from 44 to 46 in Leviticus.
Yeah, that's the pulled out of context quote. So let me just quickly read it in Hebrew and then repeat it in direct translation English, regardless of whatever it is in your original Bible. כי עמוך אחיך ומכר מאחוזתו ובא גואלו הקרוב אליו וגאל את ממכר אחיו ואיש כי לא יהיה לו גואל והשיג ידו ומצא כדי גאולתו וחשב את שני ממכרו והשיב את העודף לאיש אשר מכר לו ושב לאחוזתו ואם לא מצא ידו די השיב לו והיה ממכרו ביד הקונה אותו עד שנת היובל ויצא ביובל ושב לאחוזתו ואיש כי ימכור בית מושב עיר חומה ותהיה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו ימים תהיה גאולתו ואם לא יגאל עד מילות לא שנה תמימה וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה לצמיתות לקונה אותו לדורותיו לא יצא ביבל ובתי החצרים אשר אין להם חומה סביב שדה הארץ יחשב גאולה ותהיה לו ביבל ויצא והרי לוויים בתי אחוזתם גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים ואשר יגאל מלוויים יצא ממכר בית ועיר אחוזתו ביבל כי בתי הרי הלוויים הוא אחוזתם בתוך בית ישראל ושדה מגרש הרעים לא ימכר כי אחוזת עולם להם כי עמוך אחיך ומטה ידו עמך והחזקת בו גר תושב וחי עמך אל תיקח מאיתו נשך ותרבית ויראת מאלוהיך וחי אחיך עמך את כספך לא תיתן לו בנשך ותרבית לא תיתן אוכלך אני יהוה אליכם אשר הוציאותיכם מארץ מצרים לתת לכם את ארץ כנען להיות לכם לאלוהים כי ימוך אחיך מעמך הוא ובניו עמו ושב למשפחתו ולאחוזת אבותיו ישוב כי עבדים אשר הוצאתם מארץ מצרים לא ימכרו ממכור את עבד לא תרדמו בו פרך ויראת מאלוהיך ועבדך ועמתך אשר יהיו לך מאת הגויים אשר סביבותיכם מהם תקנו עבד ועמה וגם אחריכם לרשת אחוזה לעולם בהם תעבדו באחיכם בני ישראל איש באחיו לא תרדמו בו פרך וכי תשיג יד גר ותושב עמך ומח אחיך עמו ונמכר לך לעקר או למשפחת גר לכם ימכר גאולה תהיה לו אחד מאחיו יגלנו או דודו או בן דודו יגלנו או משאר בשרו משפחתו יגלנו או ילדו ונגאל וחשב אם קונהו בשנת ימכרו את שנת היובל והכסף ימכרו במספר הימים כי ימי שכיר יהיה עמו. That's about enough. So the relevant
I am under hypnosis right now.
That was pretty good, man. That was
I read it faster the first time.
Yeah, I remember.
So just for the listeners, we did the first podcast and the audio failed, so we have to redo this one. Okay, so the relevant part is starting from verse 35. And if your brother has the word yamuch, we can interpret it as fallen or lost his possessions, and his hand has been dropped into you and you held on to it. It means somebody became a slave. He lived and he will reside and he will survive with you. That means he becomes your slave. Do not take from him any interest, like percentages. Do not play neshech. It's a financial thing, because because you should fear your God, and your brother would live with you. Your money, you will not give him an interest, again under neshech. You will not force him to pay for his food. I am Yoveh, your God. No, it's Yovah here. I am Yovah, your God, that pulled you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan to be your God. And should your brother fall with you and sold to you, you will not force him to work hard as a slave. He will work as a paid laborer, as a resident. He will be with you till the year of the Yovel, that's once in 50 years. He will work for you. And he came out of your people, he and his sons with him, and returned to his family and to the land of his ancestors. He will return, because my slaves they are. God says the Hebrews are his slaves, that I pulled them from the land of Egypt. They will not be sold as a slave. You will not force him into hard labor, because you fear from your God. And your slave and your female slave, that's verse 44, the relevant one. Your slave and your female slave that you shall have from the goyim that live around you, from them you will buy slave and female slave. And also from the sons of the people that live with you, from them you will buy. And from your family that are with you, that gave birth within your country, they will be your estate. That's how you translate the word achuzah. And you settle them to your own sons that come after you to inherit the estate for eternity. For they will be slaves for you. And in your brothers, the sons of Israel, one man to his brother, you will not enslave him. And if you reach the hand of a foreigner who lives among you, and your brother fell from his assets and became sold to a foreigner who is a resident within you, or to the family of a foreigner, after he is sold, he will have redemption. One of his brothers will redeem him, or his uncle or his cousin will redeem him, or any other member of his family will redeem him, or anyone who can reach his hand will redeem the man. And he calculated with his buyer from the year he was sold to the year of the Yovel, and silver was paid for the number of years that he worked with him as a laborer. And if there are many years until he redeems himself, and a few years he was calculated for years, and he redeemed himself as a laborer year by year, he will work with him, and he will not be forcefully enslaved for your eyes. And if not redeemed, and in money, he will live in the year of the Yovel anyway, he and his sons with him. Because to me, the sons of Israel are slaves. They are my slaves, that I pulled them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yovah, your God. And again, I should... well, we can't challenge you the second time after I showed you, but basically in the last podcast I challenged Rex to quote me exactly what is the very first of the 10 commandments. And Rex, what happened?
Well, I said, which commandments are you talking about, man? There's a whole bunch of them. And not necessarily the first commandment of the Holy Bible, but there's commandments in all sorts of different religions that aren't based upon Abrahamic texts. So
No, I meant
that's not what I
Ten
said.
Commandments and
It was a
books of
joke.
Exodus.
I was joking. Here's the funny thing. I've read some of the comments in the videos that we've done, and a lot of times people are like, Rex, your jokes aren't funny. Rex, you should really stop with the jokes. But there's also people that are like, the difference between you and Alexander as far as your humor, just because we're from different parts of the world, sometimes you don't get it when I'm joking, and rightfully so, because it's not funny anyway, but just a different type of humor. And to add to that, no, he asked me what the first commandment was, and I didn't know off the top of my head. I had to Google it, so he got me on the spot.
Yeah, it's I'm probably the one Jew in the world who is not funny, but more seriously, it's a very Christian thing, because the way Christianity evolved into a very hierarchical system, where into the Middle Ages and serfdom and slavery later, they didn't want you to know. I mean, they tell you, read your Bible, 10 Commandments, follow 10 Commandments, read your Bible. But the very first one, they do not tell you. And I encourage everybody to check for yourself. The exact wording is, I am the Lord, your God, who pulled you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. That's very important. And it's not just, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God who pulled you out of the land of Egypt. Egypt in the ancient world was by far the most rich, the most prosperous part of the entire world.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. In reference to, I am the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt, essentially.
No, Yehovah, it says. Yehovah.
No, correct. This is the question I would like to ask. And we're going to get deep here for a minute, because I feel that if God is all-knowing, everywhere, all the time, constantly, then creating people for failure, or creating people that would then have to go kill other people based upon their religious belief or their spiritual belief, or the fact that they worship idols, yet people are supposed to have free will, I think that is a oxymoron. It doesn't make sense to me. And I would like to know if you feel that God in the, when it says, I am thy Lord, I am the Lord your God that brought you out of Egypt, do you feel that is the absolute top of the apex, God of everything, the creator of all, the divine providence?
Well, this is a three-part question, so I'll just quickly finish the point and then answer every part of this. So Egypt is the richest place, and even though it is the richest place, it is a house of slaves, and God pulled you out of the house of slaves. Therefore, God decided for you, if you're an Israelite or a Jew, an Israelite in general, that you are not a slave, because you belong to God. And you see it in this chapter, you see it all throughout the Bible, that God decided that you are a slave only to God and not to man. And even if you're forced to become a slave to man, you're still owned by God, and no man shall own another. The original Hebrew Bible is extremely anti-slavery, as you just saw from what I read to you. But in the King James Version, it was modified so it would not be, politically uncomfortable for the 14th, 15th century, whatever. Okay, as far as you were saying, about evil people, I think I said it in a previous podcast. I'm not sure if you aired it or not. God has a plan, and it's part of his plan that there will be bad people and bad things will happen to good people. And frankly, most people in the world are irrelevant to God's plan. They are, like the people in the background in a computer game. Not everybody is, important. So the people who are not important, God does not care about them. That's the cold, hard truth. If you're not important, nobody cares about you, even God. And it is part of God's plan, and I believe at least that if you want God to help you, you need to make yourself important enough to warrant God's help. For that, you need to, figure out by yourself why do you deserve God's attention. As far as God's absolute authority, God is not, how do I say it? I, as a Jew, do not think that God has somebody above him, but even if there was, it's not, relevant. I mean, there is the theory that there's the God of this world and a higher God or something, but that's irrelevant, because if there is a higher God, he does not interact with us. Therefore, there is no point praying to him. There is I said in the previous podcast that, in my personal opinion, the physical God is some sort of, a resident spaceship that is watching over the earth or something. Because in all the places where God is described, how he looks, they always avoid mentioning God himself, but they mention he's in a chair made of fire and surrounded by shining lights. That sounds to me like some sort of, big computer or something in a fluorescent room. So that's my personal opinion. And in all places where I could find a serious reference, like the, where was it? In the Podesta emails, I think it was uncovered, or by Guccifer or something like that. They uncovered that the only serious message that the outer alien authorities gave to the leadership of the earth is that try not to fuck the earth up too much. We might need it in the future. So God is, and in a more perspective point, like in going full out, I think that this is what is described in Genesis, that God created man in the same way that we humans create robots. We strive to make something that would somehow be equal to us, or at least assist us in tasks. That's how man was created, to aspire to become God, to achieve his abilities. And God in no, I didn't explain. So God in the very first attempt with the Jews, he would invest in a small group of people, and everybody will see that their ways are good, their lifestyle is good, and they would copy the ways of the Jews and prosper out of it. Because the fundamental principles of Jewishness is you see just laws, very, very dry laws. 3,000 years ago, it was a huge innovation. We didn't reach a legal-based country until the late Middle Ages, and of course, in the U.S. you have the Constitution is the basis of your country. It's just a bunch of laws, small bunch of laws, and the point that failed, that's basically the entire Old Testament, is that God gave these laws to the Israelites, and then the Israelites stopped following these laws, and then God has to punish them, and then they cry out for him to help, then he helps them, and then they violate these rules again. And that's basically the entire Bible again and again and again. The most common metaphor used is that the Israelites are like a whore cheating on her husband, and God, her loving husband, every time forgives her that she's cheating on him. Then he punishes her, then she cheats on him again after he forgives her, and so on and so on. Then the Jesus thing was whether Jesus was real or not. That's It will never be settled, obviously, but what is unquestionable is that the entire early Christian movement was very heavily financed by an equivalent of the old version of the Freemasons, the Illuminati, a powerful international secret society that propagated this religion that combined, the basic Jewish values with the adaptation to local traditions. And that's how it eventually took over the Roman Empire. But the problem was that as these groups gained power, the chance for consolidation, for corruption, for the sheer evil that turned into the Vatican became possible. And especially once it was merged with the Roman Empire, the Christianity that used to be, well, you read the Bible, it's all nice and love your neighbor and all that stuff. It turned into the evils of the Vatican, into a corporation designed to extort money from the people, into basically world domination and power and wars and all that horrible stuff. So after a few more 100 years, God scratched his head and said, well, if people don't like, being left on their own, let's try the totalitarian approach. And that's how you got Islam. And Islam had a good run. They had both a lot of tolerance for minorities and a lot of, nice laws, but eventually they also descended into corruption, debauchery, and crazy, ISIS shit. So, basically all the way until Enlightenment, God has not really paid much attention to it. But now in our secular society, where on the one hand we recognize that there are principles that we treat as religion, basically the US Constitution is in a way a religion. You have a religious principle that you have the right to keep and bear arms, you have the right to free speech, you have the right for elected representatives. It's a religious point. It's logical, but it's also on a religious level. So we move to a point where we do not necessarily need to fear God to, as it said in the text here, to stop us from abusing our slaves. But, if you watch the news, the New World Order, our slave masters have definitely forgotten about it and started to abusing their slaves. And for that, there will be a general punishment, and people once again beg God for forgiveness. So, and I'm going off topic. Let's better do another one.
What do you think about the Bible in Genesis, where it essentially, if you do the math, there's many calculations that point to the biblical reference point, the beginning of the earth, is about 6,000 years old.
5,700 and Tafshin Ein Zain. 5777. Yeah. That's not the beginning of the earth. That's the year they started counting. See, this is again a mistranslation. In the biblical Hebrew, when you say a day, it can mean a day, or it can mean a year, or it can mean a week. It usually means the word yom. It means usually a day, but you have quotes like Moses led the people of Israel 40 days in the desert, where it obviously means 40 years. And so when you say day, it means a period of time. It's not literally the earth was created in a day, or all the animals were created in a year. It means a period of time. So from a scientific standpoint, you see even the order of the species that is created is correct. It's just a hell of a lot longer than one day, but the order itself is scientifically correct. First you had the universe became transparent, and you had the separation of the waters, then you had the earth and the moon, the sun, the earth, the moon, and then you have the hills and valleys, then you have animals and plants and all that stuff in creation. So this crazy religious thing where they think that the earth is exactly 5,777 years old is just, it's not a mistranslation, it's a selective interpretation of the original text, which people cannot read because it's in Hebrew. So if they had read in Hebrew, people would notice that it says sometimes a day when it means a year or a week. But in English, you don't see that. So you don't know it was that way. So it's just, people who believe what they want to believe because it serves their whatever crazy agenda. It's like, what does it say? I think they use the word dragon or Leviathan or something like that in the creation story.
Let me look real quick.
Yeah, it's in the original Bible, it says very, very clearly the big crocodiles, which is exactly what the word dinosaur means. The big crocodile, dinosaur, big lizard. So they use the crocodile instead of lizard. So, but yeah, and in the old Bible, it's for some reason, it's in your English interpretation, it for some reason was very uncomfortable to somebody with the saying big crocodiles or something. I don't know, maybe because they didn't have crocodiles in Europe or something. But
yeah, you're right, and it does verify that what I'm looking at right now. And in the book of Job, 40 and 41 indicates a hippopotamus and a crocodile are not likely the candidates for these enormous creatures. Yet this is based upon a different interpretation.
Job 40?
Yeah, Job 40 and 41. This was an article that I pulled up while you were talking about this.
I don't know what article. I'm talking about the story of creation in Genesis. Yov Mem Aleph. Let's see what we have here. Also, תחת כל השמיים, יחשב לתבן ברזל, שם ישים כמרתחה. What? There's nothing here about creation. Job chapter 41?
No. Is Job 40:15.
40. Let's see what we have. And God talked to Job from the storm and says, touch your dick. I'll ask you and you let me know.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Okay, from the start. And God talked to Job and said something, scream, if my breasts are moved, God will answer again. And Job answered to God and said, I became thin, what will I answer you? My hands I put to my mouth. Once I spoke, and I will not answer. Two, and I will not add. And Yehovah said to Job from the storm, and he said, touch your loin area as a man. I'll ask you and you let me know. Will you violate my law? Will you condemn me in the name of justice? What? Okay, that's not relevant. What did you say? Hippopotamus?
And go to Job 40:41.
41, that's in the bottom. You have the whale reference that you catch him in a fishing rod. That's funny. There is no 41. It ends at 32. It's 1 to 32. There's chapter 40, 40, and 41, but in chapter 40 there is no verse 41. And in chapter 41, it ends at 26.
Okay.
There's the
Well, what's chapter 40
Leviathan.
about?
Besides God asking Job to touch his dick.
Why would he do that? He's like, hey, I just want to make sure you're a guy. What the hell, man? That's crazy.
I think that's after the part where he swore about him. I don't know. It's built in a very weird like poem structure.
He's like, it's still there, man. Thank goodness. You made me sick, but it's sorry. That's so bad. I mean, I'm sure there's a scientific explanation for it. I'm just trying to figure it out here.
It's some sort of... It's a very long poem for God. Will you make a horse heroic?
Hello.
Will your chicken chicks cough up blood? What? Will your wisdom turn into a hawk and spread his wings into Yemen? I have no idea what this is. Will your slave complain about being forced to sleep in the hay? Something about the wings of a bird. Something. Ooh. Will you cut up children and send their ropes as
That
a
can't be
package
real.
to
Are you
someone?
making stuff up now?
Yeah, let's go to something else. I'm definitely not understanding this. Whatever this is.
I was really laughing until the end there, and oh my goodness, I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. But then, man, cutting up children and turning them into rope, that's crazy. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that makes me question the official
It
Bible
turned them
being
into
the Word of
rope
God.
and sent to someone as a package. Yep. Something about pulling a whale with a fishing rod and sticking a rope into his tongue, and then putting red cloth into his nose, and then using a knife to carve out his cheeks. Yeah,
Now it's
Bible
just
is
talking
weird,
about
man.
fishing, right? It's referring to a fish, isn't he?
I don't know if you've seen a whale, but this is not something that you can pull up with a freaking fishing rod. Definitely not with one 3,000 years old.
So it's probably a big fish and a heavy-duty fishing rod / maybe, I don't know, something like you'd see on the back of a deep-sea fishing excursion or something, but made out of bamboo. I don't know.
Oh, right after he describes how to torture a dead whale, will he ask you for a lot of mercy? Will he speak to you softly? Will he make an alliance with you? Will you forever take him as a slave? Will you play with him as a bird? Will you tie him up to your lady friends?
Wow.
Will your male friends squat over him? Will they split him up in between the Canaanites? Will you fill up trenches into his skin and his head with a fish harpoon? Will you put your hand on him? Remember war, do not add more. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, so
That's
let's...
pretty wild.
It continues.
Let me ask you, do you think that the Earth, how old do you think the Earth actually is?
It's easy to prove. You have the radioactive decomposition. They have estimates. It's somewhere around 4.6 plus minus 5% billion years old. It's like you gotta understand that even if you read the original Bible, you understand that it's not that there were people before Adam, but Adam is the one who started counting. Okay, all these people who lived 120 years, it's not an actual person. It's a group. It's a tribe. That's why when you read about Cain saying that people will hurt him, he means people who are not part of the group of Adam. That's the point. So all these Evel, Metushelach, Noah, all that's people who are not part of the tribe. It's like in to give you a related example, you have the Chukchi people of Siberia, where in their language, everybody who is not a Chukchi himself is not human. So human is only a Chukchi. And then when they started to fight and got conquered by the Russians, they had to change their language that the Russians are also people, because they managed to beat them in the war. So it's thousands of years ago, everybody was racist. There was no political correction, there was no inclusion, there was none of that stuff. Everybody thought he's the king of the world and his family is the greatest ever, and it was normal. It's only in after World War II where the whole supremacist thing started to become a bad thing.
Now, how do you think there's such a big difference when you look at somebody that's from Japan versus somebody that's from Nigeria? I mean, just such a incredible difference. And obviously, I mean, if you look at dogs, you can see everything from a Great Dane to a Chihuahua to a Poodle, a Shih Tzu, a Golden Retriever, you name it.
Basic biology, say the Nigerians, they have a very flat nose that is better adapted to high humidity areas. And on the other hand, the Jews and Arabs have a very long nose that is better at filtering out dust and fits, desert areas. And Europeans in the north have a very small nose that is good for cold climate. Same thing, or you have the whole the blue eyes thing. There was literally one guy in northern India 15,000 years ago who had blue eyes, and everybody in the world who has blue eyes now is his descendant. So
what about green eyes?
Yeah, it's probably also the blue eyes is a lack of color, and green eyes is some sort of mixture. I mean, my eyes are half brown, half green. So it's some sort of... This is a biology question, but people were definitely not, created in their state, and people do change, and genetics do change, and the whole thing is dynamic. And saying that there are no differences between races is like saying that there is no difference between a Chihuahua and a Great Mastiff.
Right, right, absolutely. There's definitely differences there. And also, what is your take on I would really like to discuss the Book of Enoch with you, the Nephilim, the Watchers.
Yeah, I read it 4 months ago. I found that somebody who was a 20-year-old Jewish guy from Berlin, he got access to the original Ethiopian book that the British guy found, and he made a direct translation from the Ethiopian into Hebrew. And yeah, I read it. what I gathered from it is that it talks about the places not far from where I live. You know, the Mount Hermon, the Golan Heights area, and it says that there were, like I said, there were a bunch of, let's call them off-world entities, tasked with keeping watch, being a garrison of planet Earth, and they decided to intervene, to introduce technologies, to perform genetic manipulations, to work to forcibly advance the Earth. And then their boss came back and basically punished them for intervening. Then the whole thing about souls waiting somewhere, that's it is a religious text, so they had to put something in. But the point of the book is that God has chosen Hanoch to become a messenger to his angels. And basically, Hanoch, by following God's orders, eventually became the angel Metatron. And what's intrigued me, like I said before, the important part that I saw is the description of God himself. Like I said, it doesn't describe God. I think it said something about having a bunch of weird heads, or I confused it from some other book. But the point is, he's in a room that is full of fire, and in the middle there's like a chair that is the chair of God, and it's all fire, and it has shapes. Maybe I have it in the bookmarks. No, sadly I do not. But it does talk a lot about the angels did intervene, and part of if you cross-reference it with the Bible, you see that the Israelites, the Jews, they had two basic tasks that were given to them by God. One is to destroy Amalek, who are defined as those who attack the people at the rear of the camp. Read eugenicists. And their second task was to annihilate the Nephilim. Nephil is from the word Nafal, which means fell or fallen. And in the Hebrew context, it also means giant. I mean, for a reference, people around the time of the Bible were like less than 5 feet tall, especially because everybody had malnutrition, because nobody knew that you need a balanced diet, and only the very, very rich people could afford to eat meat. So most people survived on bread and stuff, bread and water. So people who were well fed were literally 6 feet tall compared to 5 feet tall people, and that's why it says they're giant. They were not 10-foot giants, but they were significantly taller. It's like when you have the pygmies in Africa meet a European, a Northern European person. He's 1.5 times taller than him, so he seems huge. But it says that they created these genetic manipulations, and that they were hunted down, and then there were wars. And I specifically remember Azazel, or whatever you pronounce it in English. He's the one who taught the humans how to make swords and armor. So he was especially severely punished by God, and there was another angel who taught the human woman to put eye shader and makeup, and another one. There was these 4 guys, and they basically failed in their duty to control the earth. And you can read I'll find you an exact quote for next time, but it basically says that God created the entire flood of Noah because he could no longer trust the angels to manage earth for him. That's why God stepped in to manually control the world. That's the basic point of the book, that God has now assumed control of the world after all the angels were kicked out. And if you follow the orders of God, you can also someday, if you're pure enough, you may become an angel yourself. If not, you go into they had some elaborate explanation about a waiting room for souls that await the great end of days. Something I personally don't take the whole soul thing literally, especially because if you read it correctly, it says that the Earth is flat, basically. So yeah, that's.
Wait a second. We need to time out.
Inspired.
Time out.
What?
We got to stop for a second. Where does it say the Earth is flat, basically?
It makes a description where he was, the angel took him to a bird's eye view of the planet, and he could see the four sides of the world. So it says like the windows of the north, south, east, and west. I could see them stretching out to the edge of the earth, and above them were the stars, and blah blah blah, something like that. But it describes as if the earth is flat in that book. So it was basically, that part proves that it was it was made before about 300 BC, where the roundness of the earth was conclusively beyond a doubt proven. I mean, yes, the earth is round. It was proven in ancient Greece very simply. Like, after our very first podcast, I even sent you a picture for anyone to test it himself with, $100 of gas money, a ladder, and a piece of rope, and measuring tape, and a basic calculator. Unless you think that sinus and cosinus are also a conspiracy theory.
You know what I think we should do? Can you explain that in like 5 minutes? While we've got a good connection, because I'm actually shocked that we've got a good connection on the internet. It's been weeks since I've had a good connection on the internet. I'm probably going to go back and play this, and my voice is going to be 3 pitches higher than it's normally.
I've sent you a picture in Gmail. Maybe you can find it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I know that. I'll be able to pull that up. But you just kind of described, as somebody wanted to debunk the flat Earth theory, you told me previously how to do it, but the audio was so shot, I don't even know if that got uploaded or not. It might have.
It's basic geometry, or you can just use the if you take your car and drive about 200 or 300 miles directly north, exactly north, you will have you take something that is vertical and a few yards long, like a ladder, or if you trust that the government is in line and your eyes aren't line, you can use a lamp on the side of the rope of the road. They're all supposed to be the same size, right? And
Right.
You just at high noon you measure the length of the shadow it makes. And then the very next day, you drive a few hundred miles directly north and measure the same shadow. If you don't trust the lamppost, you can take like a ladder and a piece of rope, and you can measure exactly how long was its shadow at high noon, or if you don't trust your clock, the very shortest shadow. So in the latitudes of America, you will have like a good 1 yard difference. It depends on the date, but you will have like a significant 20-30% difference. And the distance you traveled, and the difference in the angle. You can calculate it with you can put my very ugly picture painted in Paint in 5 minutes, but you basically have an exact formula to figure out how much this distance turned into a difference in angle of a circumference. And that's how you know the radius of the Earth from, through the North and South Pole. If you want to test the the difference on the east-west radius. It'll be slightly more complicated, but the same way, where you just take in one place at noon and then drive a few hundred miles east, and at the noon that was in the place you first measured, you measure it again and you'll find a difference. But basically, in both ways, you will come to an answer that is within the 5% accuracy. So you can very easily buy yourself for a few $100s of gas money, or alternatively, if you have someone you can connect to on the internet and you can do the measurements simultaneously, very easily calculate that way the exact radius of the Earth within less than let's do it within 10% margin of error. So proving that the Earth is round is very easy. It has been done. It has been done in ancient Greece. And you have slightly more mathematically complicated ways where you can do it by looking at a tall mountain in the distance from two different points. But that will I specifically in the picture use the way that is easy enough to understand for anyone who has a minimal use of a calculator and doesn't need any sort of math skills. You just put, shift, tangents, and pull the angle directly out of it. So anybody who believes the Earth is flat is welcome to prove me wrong.
Actually, oh my goodness, you just hit the nail on the head. I would love that, and I'm going to put your feet to the fire on that, because there's so many people that just swear the Earth is flat, and I have been wanting to debunk this now for ever since I've heard it, and let's do that. Why don't we do this? I am actually going to put you on the calendar for a debate with people that are going to bring their A game to the table, and let's do it on the 31st, Friday, at this time at 4 p.m. my time, which would be 10 p.m. your time. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure. If I'm still in the country, I'm pretty sure that one of the astronomy guys is a hell of a lot better at this, because I'm not really into the whole exact math thing or astronomy thing. So if they start trying to make arguments like the sun is only 3,000 miles away, I will not have it off the top of my head an easy way to prove them wrong. But there are, I mean, listen, when I was like 4 or 5 years old and I could, see well, I look at the sun is round and looks like a ball. I look at the moon is obviously, from me, 5-year-old, I can see with my eyes that it's made of rock and that it's a ball. So why would the Earth also not be a ball? It's like, why would the Earth be flat? And why would Antarctica be the edges of it? I mean, even if it was, just take a freaking ship, or take a long-range plane. They don't cost that much, and just fly out there. This ridiculous theory that the Earth is flat is some sort of crazy distraction just to see how many people would believe it. It's some sort of crazy test run psyop by the CIA or something. I don't know.
That's what I think it is. I feel that it's a complete wag the dog distraction, because people can come into the comment section and just completely derail the conversation when people are having a good debate. And then that classifies everybody that is on that board as, when somebody new comes on that board and they read that comment about them saying the Earth's flat, they're like, well, geez, man, does everybody think the Earth's flat on this board? Does everybody that's alternative thinker think the Earth's flat? So, and then other people think, well, maybe the Earth is flat. I mean, geez, everything's CGI. Everything's CGI. Every picture that's out there in the world of the Earth being round has got to be computer generated images. It's got to be.
It's like it's a way to blur the line between what is. It's like the whole fake news thing is the same way, where it attacks your ability. They had a fancy term for it in the Soviet Union. the promotion of magical thinking, something like that, where it promotes the idea that there are where feelings and personal beliefs become equal to hard science, and that shakes the fundamental trust that people have about what is real and what is not real. And when they get to a point where I believe has the same weight to them as here are hard numbers, then they become more suggestible to propaganda, to lies in the media. And you can see it very clearly now in the United States, where people, all the people scream Trump is racist, homophobe, and they don't need evidence. They just believe because they were told by a friend or by some authority figure in the news, Trump is a racist homophobe. And this is promoted. And on the other hand, it's what you said, where people who try to say, no, it's not true, and you get somebody who goes in and starts saying, oh, things that are also not true. And then when somebody new tries to look at it and said, oh, these guys are lying too. Because when you put something admitted like HARP or chemtrails or vaccines in the same category as flat earth and, alien abduction, people who do not know what they see and they have a hard time making the difference between them would dismiss this as also a illegitimate form of information. And in that way, people don't know what to believe, so they try to believe only the mainstream media. You cut off you attack both of the edges to force people back into the middle. And then you can shift the middle because you control the middle, because the middle is where the mainstream, that's the middle. And that's their attack strategy, from what I see.
Let me jump in for a moment if I can. I want to get your take on angels. Do you feel that they are extraterrestrials from other planets, or do you feel that where do they come from? Are they in physical form? Are they in whatever form they want to be?
First of all, according to things that I've seen on TV and several other sources, one of the important 7 commandments of the of the Muslim faith is that you have to believe that angels exist. Yeah, that's what he put instead of not murder, not steal. You have to believe in angels, because the first one is a direct quote from Muhammad. Well, what I personally believe, like I said, the Earth is a base and there is a garrison, and you have the events like what happened above Zurich in 1561 or something. They had like an event where they were in a city in Switzerland, they could, or Germany or something, they could literally see spaceships having a fight overhead, to the point where they could see which side was winning. So, yeah, and that was like witnessed by thousands of people. So that can be like fake or mass hypnosis or something. So I think I have an opinion that there are physical angels, aliens, representative of the God of this world, whatever you want to call it. Have I seen one? No. Do I have hard evidence that there is one? No. Does the whole Dark Knight and astronauts in the International Space Station cover the online webcam with their hand every time a shady object appears? Yes. Have I, talked to one of these aliens? No. So, yeah, that's a belief thing and not a I know thing.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought up the Dark Knight satellite. Do you have any information on that?
I'm not sure how much I can say. Let's put it this way. After the Soviets beat the Americans to space, the Americans used a hell of a lot of money to create NASA was the, let's call it the civilian arm of the space program, and there was a parallel military space program using black budgets from the, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. They all collaborated. They basically during the Cold War, let's call it the capitalists and the communists had like a quiet agreement that they would not start fights in space. And so the Soviets on their side, they honored the deal, but the capitalists violated the deal. That's why you had like a funny situation where the first the Soyuz capsule, let's call it a very primitive space shuttle. So the moment the Soviets launched it, a space station, a primitive space station, the moment the Soviets launched it, one of the people at NASA leaked that the Americans have already began developing a special tool to hostilely attack and take over the Soviet space station. So a lot of the Soviet spacecraft carried the little cannon, 20 millimeter cannon, in case the crazy Americans try to forcibly take over one of their spaceships. But then again, these are the same guys at the Pentagon who wanted to blow up a nuke on the moon just to show the world how cool they are. So it's not that crazy. But on a deeper level, there were not just the military satellites, the Americans deployed weapons platforms. You probably heard about the Rod of God or something, where they shoot tungsten kinetic energy weapons that basically just hit the Earth at like Mach 50 and cause nuclear levels of damage without any actual explosion. Bunker busters, they had all sorts of... The entire Star Wars program was a charade to legitimize the covert part of the space mission. You have, of course, the famous X-37B. It's basically like the space shuttle, but it's shit. It was deployed in the late 70s. It's the older version, and what they show you now is like things that are 20 years old. It's like the Google Glass thing. They made it in the early 90s, and they waited until the 2010s to make a fake not working version for the public. So with the space program, it's even deeper. The technology that is in access to the Pentagon right now is 50 years ahead of what we see here. So whether it's an alien or advanced military technologies, it's hard to say. But we do know that the secret military technologies do exist. And if there were aliens, the contact has already been made. There is, of course, the famous or not famous interview that Buzz Aldrin gave to Alex Jones in the late 90s, where he said that they found like the thing, like the black obelisk from 2001. They found one on the moon, and there's some sort of signal from Phobos, that's the moon of Mars. Well, that's what the crazy old man said. Maybe it was a psyop, but
let's go back. Let me jump in for just 1 second, because if you even go back to the 60s, not only was the Soviet a specific person that worked for the Soviet Union that had a very high position in astrophysics. He said that Phobos was most definitely an artificial object, and there are some great images, and it could be CGI, but I don't think so, from NASA that show what looks like this enormous structure protruding from the outside of Phobos. So it definitely could be an artificial...
Dude, you have a telescope. Watch it yourself.
Yeah, I've got an 8-inch telescope that's nice, but I don't know if I can pick up the anomaly on Phobos with it. I might be able to when I'm in South Dakota.
With some... nah, You
Probably
can't
not.
afford an adaptive lens, right?
I don't know. I can afford a peanut
It's
butter and jelly
like
sandwich in a 20-year-old van.
no, it's like the all the fancy telescopes, the big ones, they
Right.
shoot a laser through the atmosphere, and then they detect the vibrations in the air, and then the big telescopes, they have a mirror. They actually make a mirror of special plastic where it bends in real time in accordance with the bending in the atmosphere. So, and then instead of a blob, you get an actual like a circle when you watch a distant star. So,
Cool.
yeah, you probably can afford something like that, but with maybe you can try go to one of these observatories. I bet the one of the Astronomy Live people that you interviewed, he can probably get you someone. Just for a picture of Phobos, you can probably arrange that.
You know, that'd be neat because actually there's the Fort Davis Observatory, the McDonald Observatory in Fort Davis, Texas. I was out there last year. I got some great footage, and I almost made it into the star party that they had out there. But to make a long story short, there's a world-class observatory out there. And yeah, maybe I'll go back out there and see if I can get some footage. Now, the scope that I've got, I mean, don't get me wrong, this thing can pick up the different spots on Jupiter and the rings of Saturn and different colors and textures, and it picks up the greatest. You know, you look at anything in NASA on the moon, this thing does an amazing job picking up stuff on the moon. And I've got a solar filter where I can actually look at the sun during the daytime and see any solar flares and stuff. But it would be neat to see Phobos under one of those scopes. So maybe I'll see if I can set that up. That's a good idea.
Phobos, I don't remember. I remember it's pretty small. It's like
it is
a few 100 kilometers across or something. So yeah, you'll probably not see a structure, but I do remember that the Soviets and even the Russians sent a lot of robots and probes to Mars, and not a single one of them ever made it.
Yeah, the Phobos ones malfunction.
No, all of them. They send like 4 or 5 robots to Mars, and every time they send one, they mysteriously fail after encountering a bright flash. It's like if nothing makes you believe in aliens, that will.
That's just swamp gas from Uranus. Now, the dimensions are 27 by 22 by 18 kilometers.
Oh, that's small.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably not see more than a dot with your telescope, but
Probably not.
I'm not sure what the maybe with some software you can clear up the image, but you'll definitely not see a structure.
Right. You know, when I look at stars under this with the scope, it almost looks like you're looking at a Tesla coil.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. The thing is that once you look at that much of a distance, you have the because of the refraction effect, you're gonna have colors bleeding when you try to actually zoom in. So you can't use a lens to zoom in. You have to digitally zoom in. And once you digitally zoom in, you get a lot of artifacts, like dots with an unclear color showing up in the middle of somewhere. Kind of like when you try to zoom in with Google Earth too hard, you get like big blobs. But well, that's a creative idea. You can try it tonight.
Bingo. Sounds like a plan. And yeah, I mean, this is really cool. I appreciate you spending some time out of your day. And how are things going out there?
Out of my night. It's 1 a.m.
It's 1 a.m. And yeah, well, it's really early in the day then. Must not compute. Don't under.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alexander.
Unlike you, I don't drink vodka when I'm tired, so I'm still all there.
Yeah, I'll tell you, every time I drink the next day, I realize why I don't drink, because I feel like shit the next day, and it's just my body doesn't handle it well. I was in very rare form that day.
I don't know how you made it to this age when you mix vodka with coffee.
Well, like I said, I very rarely drink, so hopefully that's why. But yeah, I'm not going to do that again for a while. And if I ever do drink again, I make sure not to drink coffee with it. Definitely not.
Oh, and the kombucha tea, do you buy it or do you make it yourself?
I used to make it. I buy it now. I used to make it religiously, and
No,
that
like
was
the
actually
physical
fun.
mushroom.
Yeah, yeah. You'd have like the biscuits on the top that were like plastic patties almost. I remember one time I actually threw one in a blender, mixed it up, and drank it, and that was interesting. I know, right?
I remember my parents used like the physical. It's like a big white, like a mushroom, like only the head.
Yeah.
It's like big white, but it ate a hell of a lot of sugar, and it did cause some psychological effects. So I convinced my parents to stop that shit.
Did it really?
Yeah, it has alcohol in it, and a lot of other stuff that interact with the alcohol. It's like 2% alcohol in it, so it's basically a diluted liquor what you're drinking. That's why
very
it makes
diluted.
so good.
Like the stuff that I like, if I'm there's no way this is 2%. The stuff that I get, this is probably a 0.5% max. I mean, it says it contains trace amounts of alcohol, but it's so small that it would be less than what you would get in a lot of the cough syrup out there. It's very, very
Yeah,
small.
but the point is the effect itself is not. It's not the alcohol itself that interacts. When it gets into your body, it changes the pH level of your blood. That's what makes most of the alcohol effect. So you can have something that is not exactly alcohol, but will do the similar effect on your blood chemistry. So even if it's not alcohol, I mean, if you try, don't try. But if somebody drinks like I don't know. The toilet cleaning acid, you will also get drunk if he survives the throat burning. But
yeah,
you will also
and
get
eat
drunk.
your gut. It would like put a hole in your stomach probably.
If you mix it with tea, you'll survive it, probably. Yeah, let's not discuss ways of
You
poisoning
wouldn't
other
want to
people.
I mean, that would, yeah, if you did survive it, you'd be in pain. Oh my gosh, that'd be terrible. Let's not even go there. It's interesting because there's this TV show out there called My Strange Addiction, which I can't stand, but I know somebody that likes to watch it. And there's this lady on there that would drink paint on a daily basis. She would drink gold paint, and she loved it, and she bragged about how good it tasted. And I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't that kill the average person, or wouldn't that cause the average person's stomach to just completely collapse? And I mean, I can't even think of what it'd be like going to the bathroom. Oh my gosh. Oh.
Wait, she drinks industrial paint?
Yes. Daily.
That can't be real. It cannot be real.
Dude, it is real. Absolutely, it's real. You can watch
It is
the video.
absolutely not real. It will send her into an immediate epileptic seizure.
It's real.
No.
I'm telling you, man.
I'm telling you, it's staged, it's faked, it's CGI. If you try that immediate epileptic seizure, she will not be able to walk. Definitely after 3 times, she will not be able to walk, let alone give an interview to a TV show. It's probably some sort of crazy CIA psyop to normalize crazy fucking people.
I'll tell you what. Here, let me just read this to you real quick. My Strange Addiction, and it could very well be. It could very well be. Here it goes. A documentary television series on TLC, and it has the one where, okay, she drinks paint. I'm trying to see the exact kind of paint that it is. Where is the kind of paint is it? Let me go back here a little bit. What kind of paint is this chick drinking?
Even if diluted, it will. No, it's acrylate paste. It'll fry your nervous system.
I mean, that's what I would think. I certainly she like, okay. She guzzled close to 3 gallons since she first started the practice 3 years ago. It's
gallons.
Yeah, I drink paint
And
for
she can
markers.
walk
Okay,
and
they're for
speak.
markers. They're for I drink paint for markers because I have looked for other paint both in quart or gallon form, and I have found one that satisfies my desire. My Miss Bill demonstrates how she makes the paint marker pen up to get the ideal consistency. The stick sit in her mouth. In another scene, it shows her drinking shots of white paint in front of the camera. She has consumed around 3 gallons since she started 3 years ago.
And she's not in a psychiatric ward, I guess, for suicidal.
Hey, it's America, man.
They
don't have money for that kind of stuff. They don't got money to help people like this out. They got money to sell her more paint, though. She'll probably get government assistance to go buy paint.
I see the psyop in it. It's like the whole transgender thing. Now you have like trans species thing where people think that they are cats and want to be legally recognized as a cat or a dog. It's to force you into a situation where you refuse to. The point of this psyop is to unravel the conformity of people. The whole resist is to make you less cooperative with the people around you, because when you think that you need to drink paint or you want to or decide that you're a 6-year-old girl, is the people who will tell you to cut that shit out right now is your family. And basically the TV is convincing you not to listen to your family. So it's the stabilization of the family unit. Don't listen to your family. Don't listen to your friends. You're awesome because the TV said so. And never listen to anybody and don't cooperate with anybody. Atomization of society, atomization of the family unit. That's 1984, not Brave New World. That's 1984 tactics. Where they want to isolate you from your own direct family, and they want to isolate what we said previously. They want to isolate you from reason. They want to isolate you from family. They want the people less and less united, so they would not be able to resist their agenda.
Welcome to New World Order, Alex. Well, they love you so much, they do everything they can to suppress you. And you gotta lick those boots, man. Especially here in the U.S., you gotta lick those boots. So, on that note, I think that we will close out tonight, and we definitely appreciate you spending time out of your late night here with us, Alexander. And I can't wait to get you on the show again. I've got you on the calendar, by the way, for the 31st. So,
yep. State. That's how you translate the word Hosa. And you settle them to your own sons that come after you to inherit the estate for eternity. For they will be slaves for you. And in your brothers, the sons of Israel, one man to his brother, you will not enslave him. And if you reach the hand of foreigner who lives among you, and your brother fell from his assets and became sold to a foreigner who is a resident within you, or to the family of a foreigner, after he is sold, he will have redemption. One of his brothers will redeem him, or his uncle or his cousin will redeem him, or any other member of his family will redeem him, or anyone who can reach his hand will redeem the man. And he calculated with his buyer from the year he was sold to the year of the Yovel, and silver was paid for the number of years that he worked with him as a laborer. And if there are many years until he redeems himself, and a few years he was calculated for years, and he redeemed himself as a laborer year by year, he will work with him, and he will not be forcefully enslaved for your eyes. And if not redeemed and in money, he will live in the year of the Yovel anyway, he and his sons with him. Because to me, the sons of Israel are slaves. They are my slaves that I pulled them out of the land of Egypt. I am Yehovah your God. And again, I should... we can't challenge you the second time after I showed you, but basically in the last podcast, I challenged Rex to quote me exactly what is the very first of the Ten Commandments. And Rex, what happened?
Well, I said, which commandments are you talking about, man? There's a whole bunch of them. And not necessarily the first commandment of the Holy Bible, but there's commandments in all sorts of different religions that aren't based upon Abrahamic texts. So
no, I meant
that's not what I said.
Commandments
it was a joke. I was joking. Here's the funny thing. I've read some of the comments in the videos that we've done, and a lot of times people are like, Rex, your jokes aren't funny. Rex, you should really stop with the jokes. But there's also people that are like, the difference between you and Alexander as far as your humor, just because we're from different parts of the world, sometimes you don't get it when I'm joking, and rightfully so, because it's not funny anyway, but just a different type of humor. And to add to that, no, he asked me what the first commandment was, and I didn't know off the top of my head. I had to Google it, so he got me on the spot.
Yeah, it's I'm probably the one Jew in the world who is not funny. But more seriously, it's a very Christian thing, because the way Christianity evolved into a very hierarchical system, where into, the Middle Ages and serfdom and slavery later, they didn't want you to know. I mean, they tell you, read your Bible, 10 Commandments, follow 10 Commandments, read your Bible. But the very first one, they do not tell you. And I encourage everybody to check for yourself. The exact wording is, I am the Lord, your God, who pulled you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slaves. That's very important. And it's not just, I am the Lord your God. I am the Lord your God who pulled you out of the land of Egypt. Egypt in the ancient world was by far the most rich, the most prosperous part of the entire world.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. In reference to, I am the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt, essentially.
No, Yehovah, it says. Yehovah.
No, correct. This is the question I would like to ask. And we're going to get deep here for a minute, because I feel that if God is all-knowing, everywhere, all the time, constantly, then creating people for failure, or creating people that would then have to go kill other people based upon their religious belief or their spiritual belief, or the fact that they worship idols, yet people are supposed to have free will, I think that that is a oxymoron. It doesn't make sense to me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and we have Alexander the Great with us, all the way from Israel. We're going to discuss a multitude of topics during this podcast, but the first thing we're going to talk about is the Bible chapters, essentially, certain quotes out of the Bible that talk about slavery.
The video that you made and garnered a lot of negative comments. That would be the topic.
It certainly did get some negative comments, and there's several passages out of the Bible. The one in particular that I wanted to bring up first is from Leviticus 25:44 through 46, where it says, at least in the King James Bible, however, you may purchase male or female slaves from among the foreigners who live among you. You may also purchase the children of such resident foreigners, including those who have been born in your land. You may treat them as your property, passing them on to your children as a permanent inheritance. You may treat your slaves like this, but the people of Israel, your relatives, must never be treated this way. Leviticus 25:44 through 46. And the version that you're going to read to us is a lot different, because you're going straight to the Hebrew.
You want me to do the Hebrew thing again?
Please, absolutely. And just so you guys know that have a chance to listen to this podcast, Alexander speaks Hebrew fluently.
I'm reading exactly the direct original. Let's go all the way from verse 25 and up till 45. Okay, so let me
let's
read it.
Go to at least 46, because in this specific part, it's from 44 to 46 in Leviticus.
Yeah, that's the pulled out of context quote. So let me just quickly read it in Hebrew and then repeat it in direct translation English, regardless of whatever it is in your original Bible. כי עמוך אחיך ומכר מאחוזתו ובא גואלו הקרוב אליו וגאל את ממכר אחיו ואיש כי לא יהיה לו גואל והשיגה ידו ומצא כדי גאולתו וחשב את שני ממכרו והשיב את העודף לאיש אשר מכר לו ושב לאחוזתו ואם לא מצא ידו די השיב לו והיה ממכרו ביד הקונה אותו עד שנת היובל ויצא ביובל ושב לאחוזתו ואיש כי ימכור בית מושב עיר חומה ותהיה גאולתו עד תום שנת ממכרו ימים תהיה גאולתו ואם לא יגאל עד מילות לו שנה תמימה וקם הבית אשר בעיר אשר לא חומה לצמיתות לקונה אותו לדורותיו לא יצא ביבל ובתי חצרים אשר אין להם חומה סביב שדה הארץ יחשב גאולה ותהיה לו ביבל ויצא והרי לוויים בתי אחוזתם גאולת עולם תהיה ללוויים ואשר יגאל מלוויים יצא ממכר בית ועיר אחוזתו ביבל כי בתי הרי הלוויים הוא אחוזתם בתוך בית ישראל ושדה מגרש הרעים לא ימכר כי אחוזת עולם להם כי עמוך אחיך ומטה ידו עמך והחזקת בו גר תושב וחי עמך אל תיקח מאיתו נשך ותרבית ויראת מאלוהיך וחי אחיך עמך את כספך לא תיתן לו בנשך ותרבית לא תיתן אוכלך אני יהוה אליכם אשר הוציא אתכם מארץ מצרים לתת לכם את ארץ כנען להיות לכם לאלוהים כי ימוך אחיך מעמך הוא ובניו עמו ושאול משפחתו ואל אחוזת אבותיו ישוב כי עבדים אשר הוצאתם מארץ מצרים לא ימכרו ממקורת עבד לא תרדמו בפרך ויראת מאלוהיך ועבדך ועמתך אשר יהיו לך מאת הגויים אשר סביבותיכם מהם תקנו עבד ועמה וגם אחריכם לרשת אחוזה לעולם בהם תעבדו באחיכם בני ישראל איש באחיו לא תרדמו בפרך וכי תשיג יד גר ותושב עמך ומח אחיך עמו ונמכר לך לעקר או למשפחת גר לכם ימכר גאולה תהיה לו אחד מאחיו יגלנו או דודו או בן דודו יגלנו או משאר בשרו משפחתו יגלנו ויגיע לידו ונגאל וחשב אם קונהו משנת ימכרו את שנות היובל והכסף ימכרו במספר ימים כי ימי שכיר יהיה עמו. That's about enough. So the relevant
I am under hypnosis right now.
That was pretty good, man. That was
I read it faster the first time.
Yeah, I remember.
So just for the listeners, we did a first podcast and the audio failed, so we have to redo this one. Okay, so the relevant part is starting from verse 35. And if your brother has the word yamuch, we can interpret it as fallen or lost his possessions, and his hand has been dropped into you and you held on to it. It means somebody became a slave. He lived and he will reside and he will survive with you. That means he becomes your slave. Do not take from him any interest, like percentages. Do not play neshech. It's a financial thing, because because you should fear your God, and your brother would live with you. Your money, you will not give him under interest, again under neshech. You will not force him to pay for his food. I am Yehovah, your God. No, it's Yehovah here. I am Yehovah, your God, that pulled you out of the land of Egypt to give you the land of Canaan to be your God. And should your brother fall with you and sold to you, you will not force him to work hard as a slave. He will work as a paid laborer, as a resident. He will be with you till the year of the Yovel. That's once in 50 years. He will work for you. And he came out of your people, he and his sons with him, and returned to his family and to the land of his ancestors. He will return, because my slaves they are. God says the Hebrews are his slaves. That I pulled them from the land of Egypt. They will not be sold as a slave. You will not force him into hard labor because you fear from your God. And your slave and your female slave, that's verse 44, the relevant one. your slave and your female slave that you shall have from the goyim that live around you. From them you will buy slave and female slave. And also from the sons of the people that live with you, from them you will buy. And from your family that are with you, that gave birth within your country, they will be your